다른 군신 벤젠 구리 주지백이 공로숨 송합회백 총가다 답변시에 에스토니아 퇴전에 구접까지 폐유 통매 제시업에이나 나온디 세번 쉽게 있는데 내 폐야레데 아주 정경내 배구시와 시선시니 다른 벤젠 구리 주지백이 총가기 제고 답변시에 니만 가시지 파르잔 나노치 슈번나 신치니 다른 데 폐되유. I wish to thank the Estonian parliamentary delegation led by Juku Kale-Red. Juku is a poet, he is a writer, and he is presently the president of the parliamentary group for Tibet in the Estonian parliament. And he is accompanied by Mr. Han Polos, also a member of parliament, and also former speaker and president of the Tibet parliamentary group in the Estonian parliament. According to the protocol of the Estonian parliament, the speaker is the second most highest ranking officer in Estonia. And the third member of parliament, Mr. Tarmo Tam, he is also a member of parliament of the Estonian parliament and a member of the Tibet friendship group in the Australian parliament. Mr. Andres Herkel, behind, is a former member of Estonian parliament and also a journalist. And all the activities in Estonia are normally headed by Roy Strider, and he has been involved along with Andres to host His Holiness for 3 times to Estonia in 1991, 2001, and 2011. And they are accompanied by Ellery Porosan, who is a partner of Juku, and Annabelle Pirutalo, partner of Roy Strider. And they are also accompanied by our representative of the Office of Tibet in London, Mr. Sunam Singh Frasi. Today we are gathered here to mark the special occasion of the 35th birthday of His Eminence, the 11th Panchen Rinpoche, Tenzin Gendi Yeshe Chinle Phunzo. On this special occasion, we fervently pray that His Eminence may soon be able to break the shackles of the Chinese government's illegal captivity to freedom and assume his rightful throne to the Tashinhumbu Monastery. It is also a day for us to engage in customary festivity to celebrate the Panchen Rinpoche's birthday. Unfortunately, the Panchen Rinpoche's whereabouts and that of his parents, Kuncho Phunzo and Dechen Chudun and Charir Chambachinle Rinpoche, who had been appointed chairman by the Chinese government search committee, remain unknown after they are forcibly abducted by the Chinese authorities on the night of 17th May 1995, just 3 days after His Holiness the Dalai Lama recognized him as the true reincarnation of the previous Panchen Lama. His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Panchen Rinpoche, considered the sun and moon by the Tibetans in the sky, are the two foremost holders of the Gelugpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism in history. Not only are they the highest ranking masters of the Gelugpa tradition, but they have a long history of spiritual relationship in terms of recognizing each other's successive reincarnations, bestowing ordinations on, and transmitting teachings to each other. Born in Amdo around the same time as His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and after being recognized as the reincarnation of the Panchen Rinpoche by His Holiness, they met in 1952 personally in Lhasa. They together visited China and India in 1954, 55, and in 56, 57 respectively, 56, 57 in India respectively. The turmoil in 1959 resulted in their separation, following which the Chinese government appointed Panchen Rinpoche as the deputy chairman of the so-called Preparatory Committee of the Autonomous Region of Tibet. The Panchen Rinpoche had witnessed the atrocious land and democratic reforms, the so-called pacification of the rebellion, destruction of monasteries, forced disrobing of monks and nuns, the massacre, imprisonment, and torture of hundreds of thousands of Tibetans, and the untimely death of many Tibetans, which brought hell on earth to Tibet. Despite the insistence of his tutor, Ngurchen Rinpoche, Ngabu, Geshe Sherab Gyatso, and others, Panchen Rinpoche submitted the 70,000 character petition to the Chinese Prime Minister. As a result, he suffered immeasurable suffering in the Chinese prison for more than 14 years. Following his release from incarceration, with unshaken determination, he tirelessly advocated for the education of Tibetans, the promotion and preservation of Tibetan Buddhism, and the rights of the Tibetan people. On the 10th death anniversary of the 10th Panchen Rinpoche in 1999, His Holiness, this is on the 20th death anniversary of the 10th Panchen Rinpoche in 1990, that is the 10th anniversary, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, Panchen Rinpoche has been a hero who has sacrificed his life for the cause of the Tibetan people's culture and freedom. Despite threat to his life, and especially for the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa, this is indisputably well known. We can see it clearly from his 70,000 character petition. In this way, he is an extraordinary person with aspirations that have ripened in time. When Panchen Rinpoche was alive, I could think he would do whatever he could to help Tibet. After the Panchen Rinpoche's demise, whenever there was a crisis in Tibet, I would think that it was terrible that the Panchen Rinpoche was not there. If Panchen Rinpoche were here, I would think he would do everything possible to alleviate the sufferings of the Tibetans inside Tibet. On 14th May 1995, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, following the traditional Tibetan Buddhist rituals and tests, announced the unmistakable reincarnation of the 10th Panchen Rinpoche. However, 3 days later, the Chinese government abducted him along with his parents, and since then, 29 years have passed and their whereabouts remain unknown. Since 1995, the case of the enforced disappearance of the 10th Panchen Rinpoche has been consistently discussed in the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances, UN Human Rights Commission Special Investigation Group on Forced Disappearances, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion or of Belief, UN Convention Against Torture, and other committees. Likewise, members of parliaments and governments in the United States, Lithuania, Germany, Czech Republic, Canada, Slovakia, India, Italy, Belgium, Japan, Switzerland, Thailand, the European Union, UK, South Africa, Australia, Chile, and Spain, among others, have expressed a serious concern about the situation of the Panchen Lama and have called for his immediate release. The Chinese government has not responded clearly to questions about the whereabouts of Panchen Rinpoche raised by the United Nations and the international community. In 2015, the Chinese government spokesperson claimed that the Panchen Rinpoche is receiving education like other children and that he does not want to be disturbed by anyone. The report from a 5-member UN human rights experts in their meeting with the Chinese government on 2nd June 2020, the Chinese government claimed that Panchen Rinpoche received free compulsory education when he was a child, passed the college entrance examination, and now has a job. Similarly, on being questioned on Panchen Rinpoche during the 45th session of the UN Human Rights Council held on 22nd September 2020, the Chinese government's representative said the Gendun Chu Yinyima is a common Chinese citizen and not the reincarnation of Panchen Rinpoche. The Central Tibetan administration has persistently called on the immediate release of Panchen Rinpoche through resolutions passed in the Tibetan Parliament in exile and in statements of the Kashak. The officers of Tibet carried out various campaigns to garner support from the international community. Similarly, non-governmental organizations such as the International Campaign for Tibet and Tibet support groups worldwide have initiated numerous advocacy campaigns. The Tashilhunpo Monastery has unceasingly carried out campaigns for the release of Panchen Rinpoche. On the occasion of the 33rd birthday of Panchen Rinpoche in 2022, Venerable Sigyep Rinpoche, abbot of the Tashilhunpo Monastery, along with Sikyong, met with Nancy Pelosi, the then Speaker of the U.S. Congress, and Azra Zayer, the U.S. Special Coordinator for the Tibetan issues. They also participated in a testimony in the Canadian Parliament on the 5th May. With the coordination of the offices of Tibet, Venerable Sigyep Rinpoche carried out advocacy campaigns in Belgium and England, among others. Sadly, the Chinese government has not heeded to the genuine concern and appeal of the international community and the Tibetans in exile. Our most pressing concern is whether the Panchen Rinpoche is still alive or not. If he is presumed to be alive, had he been brought up with his parents from the age of 6 up till now for the last 29 years? Or had he been kept in a remote environment to become someone who can't even speak Tibetan? How much the people around him might have abused and tortured him, just as the Chinese Communist Red Guard subjected the 10th Panchen Rinpoche through struggle session. Has he been confined within the high walls of a Chinese prison with no communication with the outside world? Or had he been kept in solitary confinement with no sight of the sunlight, cold and hunger? Or just as the 10th Panchen Rinpoche, was he being tortured by the Chinese government with cold and hunger in a place battered with blizzard? Or is he being forced to work as a slave in a labor camp? Is the Panchen Lama, who has reached his prime age, really living a healthy life? These are the vital questions which remains unanswered. The Chinese government has brazenly violated fundamental human rights and freedoms of Panchen Rinpoche recognized by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Moreover, it alleges that the appeals made by Tibetans in exile and the international community to restore his fundamental human rights and freedoms are disturbing him. Such tactics to hoodwink the international community is untenable. The underlying philosophy of the reincarnation system is that one must accept the concept of rebirth. The purpose of the appearance of a reincarnation is to continue the predecessor's unfinished work. Therefore, respecting the international law, human dignity, aspirations of millions of followers of Tibetan Buddhism, and their national laws, the Chinese authorities should immediately allow an independent fact-finding commission to have access to Panchen Rinpoche, who should be given his basic human rights. Giving free rein to those regimes that brazenly violate international law and human rights is tantamount to neglecting the foundation of peace and justice in the world. Therefore, we appeal to all free democratic governments to take effective measures to secure the immediate release of Panchen Rinpoche. We call on the human rights organizations and supporters of the Tibetan cause to take all possible steps to appeal to their governments. Taking this opportunity, the Kashak would like to urge Gyaltsen Nobo, who was appointed by the Chinese government, and he being a Tibetan and someone who had the opportunity to study Tibetan Buddhism, should not become a political tool of the Chinese government's sinister motives. Instead, he must recognize the unprecedented danger threatening the survival of the Tibetan people and Tibetan Buddhism, and fearlessly undertake his responsibility and not commit any act that would hurt the Tibetans and Tibet's spiritual and political cause. Finally, I pray for the long life of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the immediate release of His Eminence, the 11th Panchen Rinpoche, Tenzin Gendu. May the two be united very, very soon. Thank you.